Hello everyone and welcome back to the Coding Amateur. Today we will connect our React router framework, which is essentially Remix, to our Directus Data Studio, which is our backend. In our previous videos, we hosted our Directus Data Studio within a Docker container on a VPS that we purchased. The web server we deployed was Nginx. We also installed React router framework on our local machine. If you are new to the channel, you can stop this video, make sure to watch the previous videos, and then you can join us in this one. So, let's get started. Open VS Code on your local machine and navigate to the folder that contains your app. Okay, I will open a new terminal and start the dev server. npm run dev. With the dev server up, I will navigate to the home page. Alright, and we are up and running. Before we do anything else, I want to state that this tutorial is going to be different. I'm not going to explain the different features of React Router Framework up front, but as we use a feature, I will explain it. So our first task is to delete the code that we don't need. We are going to use the React app as a front end for our restaurant app. We don't need this current home page, so we want to delete the component that is responsible for the content. And that would be the welcome component, so we're going to delete that folder. Right, so as soon as we deleted that folder, we got an error. That's because the route module, which is this home.txt file, is expecting that welcome folder. So we need to delete the import, and we also need to delete the component, and we're going to replace it with a div, and h1 tag, and just simply home. Okay, everything seems to be fine, and you see displayed the word home with no styling. We will add CSS to our page, but not yet. Okay, so with that out of the way, we have our first route, which is our home route. So what is a route? A route is simply an address for a web page within our app. In React Router Framework, routes are configured in the app routes.ts file. So if we look at app, we go to the routes.ts file, and our routes are configured here. Now you'll see that our routes have two parts, a URL pattern and a file path to the route module. Now the route module is a file that defines the behavior of that route. So you would notice that in our app folder, we have a routes folder, and our route modules are contained within the routes folder. The route module is responsible for the behavior of that route. So as it is now, in our home route module, we are just putting home on the home page. So we are just for the output, we are just showing home. Alright, so I hope that makes sense. So if we go back to our routes.ts file, we'll see the route pattern. A / usually refers to the home page of our website, and the path to the route module is contained here, which is routes/home.tsx. Now we can write this another way. Instead of having this /, we can replace this route function with the index function, and we can delete this /, and it will do exactly the same thing. So if we save it and we refresh the page, we realize it does the same thing. So the home page is also known as the index. So we could replace the route pattern / with the index and it would work fine. So that is the second way we could define the URL pattern within the routes.ts file, and it will give us the same result. So we have our home page. If we look closely at our home route module, you will notice a type import. So what is that? Well, React Router utilizes route-specific types to enable type inference for the URL parameter. So these types are generated based on the route configuration defined within the application, which is this routes.ts file. So whenever we modify this file, React Router regenerates the type within the React Router types directory, which is this directory here. And if we go to the routes types, we'll see the home types that was generated for the specific home route, and we import this within the home route module. So let's test this out. So for this restaurant app, we will have two pages. We have the home page and we have our menu page. We have already created the home page, so let's create the menu page. So let's go to the routes.ts and let's modify that. Now keep your eye on the routes.types folder. You'll notice that there is only the home.ts file. We're going to modify this to add the menu route. So let's do that. So if we go and we put route, so we're using the route function which we imported up here, route, and we will put in our URL pattern. All right, put a comma, and then we will put the file path for our route module, and that would be routes /menu.tsx. Now I'm going to save it. Keep your eyes on the React Router types directory. So I'm going to save. And notice that the menu is automatically generated. So when we modified the React Router when we modified the route configuration, it automatically generated a types file for the menu route. Now we have an error simply because we did not create the route module for the menu route. So let's do that now. Now I would have normally created the file first and then modify the route, but I wanted to show you how React Router automatically regenerates the types file when we modify the route. So let me now add the route module, which is menu.tsx. all right, and I will now, so what we can do is copy what we have in the home module, and we'll paste it in to the menu route module. Of course, we will change this here to menu, and we will also change this to menu. And we will save. Okay. All right, and let's make sure we have everything right. So we have that, and we have menu.tsx. Okay. All right, and let's restart our server. Okay, and all right, and everything is back up. Now let's test our app and let's see if our route works. Menu, and it works. So we have just added our menu page. Okay, so we have a new page, which is our menu page. Now again, if we look closely at our menu route module, same as the home, you will notice that there is a meta function, and all this does is add meta tags to the page. Now, meta tags are HTML tags that provide metadata about a web page, offering instructions to browsers and search engines and other web services. So for example, you would see that there is a title. If we go to the app and we look at the tab, you will see the title there, New React Router App. And if you go here, you will see New React Router App. So let's change that. So our restaurant name is Taste Buds. So let's change that. So you put Taste Buds, and let's put a pipe character, and we'll put home. Let's save that. And if we go to menu, let's change that also. We will put Taste Buds, put that pipe, and we will put menu, and let's save. And let's see what happens. So let's refresh. Okay, and we see the change. Taste Buds, menu, and if we go to home, let's refresh, and Taste Buds home. All right, so if we go back to menu /menu, hit enter, it works. So we now have our 2 pages that we need to start for our simple restaurant app. To connect our React Router framework to our Directus Data Studio, we will use the Directus SDK. So what is an SDK? Well, an SDK, or software development kit, is a collection of tools or libraries, with proper documentation, which Directus would have provided for us to help us as developers build an application for that platform. Now, why would we want to use an SDK? Well, it simplifies the development process. What it does is it does a lot of work under the hood for us, so to speak, so that we don't have to start from scratch. So if we did not use the Directus SDK to connect our backend, we would have to make a fetch request or use a package like Axios, and you'd have to manually try to connect to the endpoints to make a get request, put request. But with the SDK, it makes it much easier. As we progress, I will show you how that works. So first thing, let's install the package. So let's add another terminal, and let's do a npm install and the package, the SDK package at Directus /SDK, and we will hit it. Okay, so that is done. And next, let's create a plugins folder within the app folder. So we have our app folder. Let's create a plugins folder. And inside of the plugins folder, let's create a directus.ts file. Okay. So far, so good. Now, we need to create what is called a Directus Composable client. So let's go for it, and I will explain to you what that is. So first we'll have to import, and we are importing create Directus, and this is our client. from at Directus/SDK. Okay. Now that we have imported our client, we will put it in a variable. So const Directus and right. And here we have to put in the URL for our Directus Data Studio. So in our case, we would have hosted it on a VPS. We'll have to put the domain for that VPS here. So it would be https and cms dot decoding right. So that is our client. So it's pretty straightforward and simple. So the client starts as an empty wrapper and it doesn't have any functionality as yet. So all we have done is created the Directus client and we've stored it in a variable called Directus. So there's no functionality as yet. To add functionality, we would have to import a composable and then add the composable to the client. So let's do that. So the first composable we would need would be a REST composable. And we would add that to the client by putting it like this. Dot with, and we put in brackets, and we put REST. And then, so we have effectively added our REST composable to the create Directus client. Now we can make REST requests to our Directus Data Studio. Alright? Because we have added the REST composable. Now what we will have to do, or what we need to do, is to export our Directus. Alright, so we have exported our Directus variable, and so we can use that now in our app to connect to our Data Studio. Data is provided to the route component via loaders. There are two types of loaders. There is this loader that provides the data or fetches data on the server side, and there is the client loader that fetches data on the client side. React Router Framework is a full stack app, which means it does server-side rendering, so that in our instance, we would be using the client's, sorry, not the client side, but we will be using the server-side loader. Alright, we will not be using the client-side loader. As we progress through the app, we will use the client-side loader. But for now, we will just use the loader that fetches the data on the client side. So let's implement that loader on our menu route. And loaders are implemented directly on the route, so that when the route is called, the data is fetched for that route. Okay, so remember that. So let's implement this loader. So it's going to be export, and it's going to be async await, async function loader. And let's implement our Directus client. So const. Now to fetch the data, we want to store it. So we're going to store it in all menu, and that is equal to our Directus client, which we will call. If you notice, from my imports, I have the Directus client called from the plugins Directus folder. All right, and we will make a request, and we're going to we are going to now use a query parameter within the Directus SDK. Now the query parameter we are going to use is read items, which we are importing up here. If you look up here at our imports, we are importing read items from the SDK. Now, if you go to the Directus docs, you will see a list of the query parameters that you can use when making a request. As we progress through the app, you will see more request items as we use them. Right within this client, we can filter, we can sort, and we can do many things, right? So we are using the read items query, and what that does, when Directus makes a request to the Directus client makes a request to the Data Studio, read items will look at the collection that we are targeting, and it will look for the data within that collection. So we have to add the collection that we want to target, which is menu item, which we would have created within our Directus Data Studio. And we have to return, a loader must return all menu. Okay, so to see our data in the terminal, let's do a console log of all menu. Okay, so let's save that. So and we forgot to put a wait in front of Directus. That would be problematic if we did not do that. So let's save. All right, so we are getting an error. All right, so let's see if we can see what this error is. Right, so we have under errors, if you look here within the terminal, it is stating you don't have permission to access collection menu item, or it does not exist. Now we know for sure that menu item does exist because I created it. So the problem is that I don't have permission to access menu item. So let's go to our front end, and you see that there's an error as well. So let's go to our backend, and we see here we have all our data. So let's go to settings, and let's go to our access policies where we could modify our permissions, and we are going to public. Now, why are we going to public? Well, the reason being, in our restaurant app, we want our users to be able to see the menu items without having to log in. So we want it to be public. So let's go to add collection. We have menu item, that's our collection, and we're adding it to permissions within the public policy, which means that anyone would be able to read our menu items. Now we can determine what we want our users to do with that information. We don't want them to create an item. We don't want them to update an item or delete an item or share. All we want them to do is to be able to read an item. So we're going to give them access to read that item. So let's save. Okay, so we have given, in our access policies, we have given public access to read the data. Okay, so what we'll have to do is refresh the route, because the loaders fetch the data when the route is loaded. So when we navigate to a page, the loader for that route will fetch the data so that it will display it on the page as the page loads. So let's refresh this route, and we should see the data. We should be able to see our data. Okay, so the error is gone. And if we look in the terminal, we now see our data. All right. We now see our data. So we are seeing all of the data. So if we look at the information, we are seeing here pasta supreme, cheeseburger surprise, veggie delight, cupcakes, coconut vanilla ice cream. And if we go back to our content, we will see all our data here and the prices. So pasta supreme price $5.95. Let's look for pasta supreme. Okay, pasta supreme, and look at the price, $5.95. So we have been able to fetch our data from the backend. Now that we have our data, how do we get it to display on our menu page? Well, let's get to it. Now that we have confirmed that we could access our data from the Directus Data Studio, I want to delete this console log, no longer needed. And we have to now get that data and display it on our menu page. So how will we do that? Well, to do that, we'll need to use a hook from React Route, and that hook is called the useLoaderData. So let's import that from React Router. useLoaderData, right? So what this hook does, it returns the data from the closest route loader function, which is this loader function right here. So it will return the data from this loader within our route component, which is this component here, which is our menu component. So let's implement that hook. So const, and we need to store that. So let's store that in menu. Okay, menu. All right, and let's apply that. Let's use loader data. Okay, and let us put parentheses there, and we will put here type of and loader. All right, so now that we have our menu, we can use menu to get the information from our loader. But we need to remember that it's an array. So we'll have to map over the items in order to display the data. So just to show that our data could be displayed on the menu page, I'm only going to render the title for now. We would have to create a proper component, and we'd have to create cards and apply CSS to make the menu items look better. So for now, I'm just going to display the names of the various menu items just to show that we have the items and we can display them on the menu page. So I'm going to create a div. Inside of that div, I'm going to map the item. So menu.map. I'm going to map the items, and I'm going to use item. Okay, and let's wrap this in a div. Okay, now what we need once we are doing a map, we need a key. So let's use that key, and it's going to be item.id. If we don't do this, it's going to give us an error. So as we map through the different menu items, we must assign a unique key identifier within the to our front end, so that it knows it can identify each item individually. I hope that makes sense. If we don't put a key, there's no way of identifying each individual item. And normally the key would be the ID of that item, which we have within our Data Studio. Every menu item have a key, have an ID, and we're going to use that ID as the key. So let's now put it in a h1 tag, and let's do item.name, and let's save. So what this should do, it should display the name for all the menu items that we have stored within our Directus backend. And there you have it. So we have pasta supreme, cheeseburger surprise, veggie light cupcakes, which is the same pasta supreme, cheeseburger surprise, veggie delight. And you notice it's in the same order, it's rendered in the same order as we have it stored within the backend. Now we could change the order up, but we'll do that a little later on. So for now, we are able to display the data from our Directus backend in our React Router front end. Alright, so next, since we have our data, we will need to create our pages and make it a little more user friendly. So we'll have to style our pages. To do that, we will be using Tailwind. So in our next video, we will configure Tailwind within our React app and we will start styling our pages. See you in the next video.